Hello and welcome to this demonstrational video on this 2013 Autotrail Apache 700. We'll go around the outside and then we'll move on to the inside. So first things first, regarding the cab, to release the bonnet catch, it's this here, so that's your bonnet catch. We've got the blinds here that you pinch these two pegs together there, draw that across, and there's a magnetic strip that holds it in place. Exactly the same function on the windscreen. You just pinch these two together, draw that blind across, and again there's a magnetic strip here which latches onto the corresponding blind on the other side. Make sure that they're clicked back into position when driving, because obviously if you're cornering they can slide across and impede your vision. When you put this back, just bring this section back straight and then it doesn't crinkle up the blind. There is an indication here for tyre pressures, but it's worth referring to the tyres themselves. Your fuel filler is just here, and you need the key to open that up, so that's your diesel fuel. Underneath the bonnet then, bonnet catch is just there with a retainer here. So under here we've got washer fluid, brake fluid, coolant, oil fill, dipstick. If you ever need to jump start the vehicle, the positive terminal goes onto there and the negative terminal goes onto here. Okay, so your black onto there, red onto here. There's a chassis plate on this sill here indicating your weight. Okay, moving on around the motorhome then, we've got the gas locker. So it'll take 2 gas bottles into here with retaining straps. Okay, so this will require 2 gas bottles. You're better using propane, which is the red bottles. It's got an inline regulator which regulates the pressure of the gas that's coming out of the bottles. I will get you a hose which goes onto here, and that comes off as a flexible rubber hose and goes onto the bottles. If you're going to bring the gas bottles with you, I'll show you how to connect those up. So that's your gas locker. It's lockable. It'll take 2 bottles. I think you're probably better with the 6 kilogram bottles in there by the looks of the size of that. So 2 6 kilogram propane bottles is what's required. To lock these, you just turn those around, put the key in, lock it, and then push them in, and that will keep them in position like so. So moving on around the motorhome then, this is a vent for the fridge. So what it does is it draws cool air in at the bottom, expels warm air at the top. It's just important to keep those free of debris. Sometimes if you've got this door open like that, it may impede the function of the fridge, so just be aware of that. Next one along then, if you've got an external barbecue, you can plug into the gas bottles which are here and get your gas feed to come out of the motorhome. In order to do that, it's got this removable plug here which you push in and turn. Like so. As you turn it, that's what switches the gas supply on. So it's important that you keep the hose that is going to feed the gas appliance connected, otherwise when you turn it you'll have a gas supply coming out of the motorhome. Next thing along then is the water fill. So this again is lockable. You need the key to unlock that. Put the key in, turn the lock, and then you just put a hose pipe into there, and that's what fills your fresh water tank. There's an indication inside to tell you about the levels of your water. Next one along is an exhaust for the water heater. Now this has a weather cover on it that's fitted as we see it now. In order for the boiler to work on gas, that must be removed. Okay, so in order to do that, you just unclick it at the bottom. Okay, so just give it a push on the top and then lift up from the bottom. So in order for the boiler to work, it must look like that. I will just note that we haven't valeted this vehicle yet, so that's still to be done for the customer before they collect. You've got access to the storage here with exactly the same lockable lockers. So you first of all lock the lock, turn this turnable catch here and push them in. So in here we've got the storage with the carpets. You have got access to the boiler there, but we'll come to that when we go inside the motorhome. Okay, so turn those around like that, lock them, and then push the catches in. This has got a bike rack. We just need to fit the arms that support the crossbars for the bike rack, but I will show you that when you collect the motorhome. Another access hatch here to the external storage. Okay, to drain down the fresh water, and it's important that you do that in cold conditions, because if water's left in the motorhome and it freezes, it will expand and it could damage the pipework and crack the tank. So in order to drain down the fresh water tank, it's this tap here, and it's simply a turnable, well, it's a tap on the end of this pipe. So that's how you drain down your fresh water. The next thing we've got here is an external shower. So you've got a shower head here, which is operated just by pressing that trigger. So you can access the water and the hot water. So dog owners, you can wash down bikes. If you've been on the beach, you can wash feet off. In order to access that, you push that in like so and turn on here, and then press your trigger. Okay, next thing along is the cassette toilet. So all the toilet waste goes into this cassette. To empty this, you push up this lever like so, and then slide the cassette out. So once the cassette's out, then to empty this, what you do is you slide this funnel forward, take the nozzle off the end by unscrewing it, turn the cassette completely upside down, and the waste will pour out of this tube here. As you're doing so, press this button in. It lets air in as the liquid is coming out of that end, and it stops it glugging. This requires a chemical to break down the solids and get rid of all the smells. In order to fill it, you slide this cover back, turn this dial here, and that gives you access into the inside of the cassette. To close it again, and it must be closed before you put it back in, you just turn this dial around. So that's the blue chemical, or the blue sachets, that are required to break down the toilet waste and get rid of the smells. It's got wheels on the bottom to wheel it over to the disposal point, and an extendable handle. That yellow handle pulls out in order that you can wheel it over to the disposal point. Okay, working on around the motorhome then, everything that goes down the shower, down the kitchen sink and down the bathroom sink ends up in a tank. So that's called your grey or your waste tank. That's emptied via this outlet here, and you can see that handle there is turned. So on most sites they've got like a cattle grid system. You just drive over the grid, and that's where you empty your grey waste. Again, there's an indication inside which is accessible by the control panel to tell you what your levels are. To get a mains supply of electricity into the motorhome, that's where the mains cable goes in. I don't think there's a mains cable with this one, but we do have them in stock, so if you wanted to pick one of those up on the day of collection, then we've got those in stock. Right, we'll move on to the inside of the motorhome now. Okay, this model has required a replacement entertainment system, which we have in stock, and is just going to be fitted by one of the fitters before collection. I just wanted to point that out. So to swivel the seats around, this has got captain swivels chairs. What you do is you just pull that lever like so, and that will allow you to swivel the seat around. It won't lock in position when it's facing that way, but it will lock when it's facing forwards. Okay, we've got the oven and hob. If the electric plate has been used and is hot, don't pull the lid down because it will shatter the lid. You've got to wait for that to cool down first. Also, if the pan stands are hot as well, do the same. So you've got oven and grill with your controls across the front. We have a fridge on this model, which is a three-way fridge. So to switch this on, it's a long press on that button there. You can select which power source you want to use, but via these buttons here. So if you press that button, you've got mains electric. If you press that button, the fridge will run on gas. If you press this button here, it will run on 12 volts. You can see it's giving us a warning because we haven't got a 12 volt supply. It gets its 12 volt from the engine. So you've got mains electric, gas, and 12 volt from the engine. This allows you to select your temperature. On a really cold day, you don't want the fridge to work as hard as on a hot day. So on a hot day, you want to be up towards the top. On a cool day, leave it towards the bottom. To open the fridge, you press that button in there like so. If you leave the fridge for any length of time with the door closed, you'll get some foul smells building up in here because it's stagnant air. There's a little catch that you can pull out just there. You push that forward. It pushes the catch on the door further forward and leaves the door slightly ajar so that the fridge can breathe. And you've got a freezer section on this fridge as well. Okay, just up here behind the driver's seat we have a cupboard. In here you've got a bank of 12 volt fuses. So every 12 volt circuit that is in the motorhome will have its own fuse. So like i.e. the water pump, the lighting circuitry has all got its own 12 volt fuse. This is a mains circuit breaker, so when you're plugged into mains, should there be a fault with any of the appliances or it's overloaded, these will flick down like so. When you're plugged into mains electric, you can test that your circuitry is working by pressing that test button, and this will flip down. So that's a quick test to show you that you're plugged into mains and you've got a main supply coming in. This whole unit here is the charger unit for your battery as well. So to switch it on, you've got that switch there. That switch is your water pump on. So when you first fill up with water and you need to get water through your tap, that must be switched on. That's your lighting circuitry, and also you can select whether you want the leisure battery, which is fitted separately from your engine battery. So that will allow you to select your engine battery should you need to if you flattened your leisure battery. You've got an indication here to tell you that you've got reverse polarity. So what that means is the negative is on the positive side. It's not something you need to worry about all that much unless you've got an appliance that doesn't really like reverse polarity. But if that light indicates, it means that the negative on the power input into your motorhome is on the positive side. You get it a lot in Europe, but in the UK that should never really be a problem. That will illuminate to say the charger is operational, and we're not plugged in at the moment, so it's not lit up. You've got to have these two buttons pressed in order to get your space heater working on an electric and also your water heater. So I would just leave those pressed in. They will illuminate when you are plugged into mains electric. We've got an amplifier in there for the aerial, so that's amplifying the signal through to the aerial. The book packing instructions are here. In order for you to adjust the aerial signal, you can unscrew this here, and it'll allow you to push the aerial up through the roof and twizzle it around. So that can be adjusted to get a better signal on your aerial. Just ensure before you set off that is retracted and the column wheel is screwed in to keep it secure. Okay, so above the main habitation door we've got the control panel. That's switched on via that button there. The one underneath that is your water pump, so you've effectively got two switches for your water pump. That's got to be switched on, and also the one which I showed you in that cupboard there. So how the water system works is when you first fill up with water, you've got to pump that water through the whole system, through the pipe work, fill up the boiler, and then eventually it'll come out of your tap. So what you need to do when you first fill up with water, switch your pump on, like so. Come to your tap and then switch it on to hot. Okay, so turn your tap over to hot. Wait until you get a pure flow of water coming out of your tap, and then you know that you've purged the system of all the air in the pipework. You can't switch your boiler on until you've done that, okay? Because otherwise you're just heating thin air in your boiler, all right? And then do the same on the cold side, waiting until you've got a pure flow of water coming out of your tap. That's your external light for outside on the awning. Again, that's exactly the same system as I showed you on the charger unit. You can select which battery you want to use. So this control panel here is in direct communication with that box which I showed you in there. Okay, this control panel, I don't know if you can see this too well. You can scroll through your menus here. So we have no fresh water in the tank at the moment. So your vehicle battery is in good condition. Your leisure battery is in fair condition, but to be fair, we haven't got, we're not plugged in and we're drawing power because all the lights are on. That's just the main menu, so that's the model number of the control panel. You can set an event timer, it's just a timer. That sets your clock. So you've got a tank heater, so it'll heat your, prevent your tanks from freezing. So if you want to switch that on and off on the middle button there. You've got external temperature. This doesn't have a solar panel fitted, but had it had a solar panel fitted, it would tell you what the ampage is that it's providing for the leisure battery. And then we're drawing 4.5 amps. Wastewater's 50% full. And right, we're back to the beginning. So that's your control panel telling you about your levels. The next control panel along here is, so you've got your ultra store. So that is the heating of the water. So if you want to heat your water on electric, that's this button. So you've got two temperatures, 70 or 50, or in the middle it's like a rocker switch. So up is 50 degrees, off 70 degrees. You're better just switching that to 70 degrees. Apologies, I'll go back to what I said. This is for gas. If you want to switch your water heater on gas. Okay, now what that does, it needs to ignite obviously. So you need to have your gas connected, and you probably, when you first connect your gas bottles, it takes a while for the gas to get through the system and eventually ignite in the boiler. So you can see this red light here. That means that the gas hasn't reached the boiler, which it won't do because we've not got any gas connected. So if that's the case, you probably need to switch that off, and you may need to attempt that 2 or 3 times until the gas supply has reached the boiler and properly ignited. You must also ensure that the cover, which I showed you on the outside, is off, and so that the water boiler can exhaust properly. To speed that process up, what you can do is just draw some gas through on your hob, so it pulls the gas through from the gas bottles. Okay, so the next one along is the heating system. Okay, so what you've got here is the top one indicates 2000 watts, 500 watts or 1000 watts. The reason for that is if you're on a low ampage site and you are using the microwave, for example, then you may need to just use the lower of the settings, because otherwise you could blow the fuse on the site. Okay, so that's the reason for that. And this outer column here adjusts how you want that to operate. And then this is your temperature. Okay, so that's the heating of the motorhome. That's the heating of the water on gas. Okay, so what you need to do with this is on a UK site you can use 2 kilowatts. It'll heat faster and more efficient, so you adjust your temperature accordingly here. That then feeds into this fire system here. Okay, so on this side you've got the fan control. Okay, so in the middle it's off. A is automatic, so the fan will blow automatically at a speed that you set on this dial here on the top. So you don't, it'll just look after itself. It's temperature thermostatically controlled. Okay, so that's blowing the warm air from this heating element that's in here around the motorhome, and there's vents that are distributed around the motorhome like these here. So that is distributing the hot air that is in here around the motorhome. The middle position's off. That is manual, so that will blow at a speed which you set constantly via this fan speed control here. And then there's another temperature control here, but that's if you want to use it on gas. Okay, so what you do is you turn this around like so. Let's say you want it on setting 3. It's automatically igniting. Okay, so it will, if you set it on 3, you can probably hear that just clicking. That's if you want to heat the motorhome on gas and you haven't got a main supply coming in. There is a small indication hatch here. You can see a pilot light through there. So this is almost like a normal gas fire, but you can also use the fan to distribute the air around and it will come out of the vents. So that's if you want to heat the motorhome on gas. When it stops clicking, probably just hear that clicking, then it's ignited. You'll actually hear it woof, and then you know that it's ignited. But again, you'll have to draw the gas through from the gas bottles when you first connect up to gas. Under here is access to the back of that fan. I wouldn't store anything in there because it does need to breathe. So that fan there, you can see it. Don't sort of stuff duvets or anything down there because the fan won't be able to breathe. You've got the table in here and the leg which sits into that cut out in the floor there. The boiler is housed just under here. If you want to heat the water on electric, then there's a control for that just here, and again it's like the same rocker switch. So you've got 2 settings, the hotter setting in the lower position and the not so hot setting in the higher position. So that's heating your water on electric. So that's where that is. The water boiler itself is housed just in here. Now it is important that you drain the water out of this. If water's left in here and it freezes, this is the most important bit. It will expand inside the boiler and inside all this pipe work, and it will damage the boiler. So whenever you're not using the motorhome, it's important to drain the water out of this, and you do that via this toggle switch here. Okay, so that is now in the open position. You can probably see it's pointing upwards. That's closed, so that is the usable position. That will retain all the water in this boiler. So if you try and switch your hot water boiler on, if you try and switch your water on, all that'll happen is if that's in that position, all the water will just drain onto the floor. To retain the water within the boiler, that must look like that. And then in winter, when you're draining it down, that must look like that. Okay. I can go through that on the day collection in a bit more detail, but I hope that makes sense. Okay, so that's where the boiler's housed. To make the bed up on this rear lounge model, you just simply pull this section forward. There's like a slatted base under here. So you pull it and it goes all the way along these runners like so, and then you draw these cushions into the centre. So you end up with this as a large bed, and then you've got a bed up at the top there, and then this will also make a bed here using the table to bridge the gap between these two. In the bathroom, the toilet system. Okay, so to use the toilet, lift the lid, open up the blade which is connected to that cassette which I showed you outside, slide that across and it's opening up the blade which is directly connected to that cassette. So open up the toilet, use the toilet, press the flush button, and then make sure that you close this blade back up before driving, because you should have toilet waste in there and you don't want that splashing around. So that's your flush. When the toilet cassette is full, which it is because they've been testing it, this light will appear here, so that gives you an indication how full your toilet is. Just another point on winterization: whenever you're not using the motorhome, just make sure your taps are left open, because what it does, it lets air in as you're draining all the water out of the boiler and the freshwater tank as well. So when you're laying it up for winter, make sure your taps, that tap in there, your shower as well in there, and this tap are open. You've drained down your fresh water, your wastewater, and more importantly than anything, the boiler which I showed you under there. Okay, so that concludes the video. I'm more than happy to go through anything before you collect. If you give me a call, I'm available to talk you through anything you're not sure of, maybe from the video. But if not, you know, we can go through things on the day. So we very much look forward to seeing you when you collect this fantastic new motorhome.